Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Game-Based Learning in the World Language Classroom. The why, what, and how. We're still on the why section, and we're in the middle of discussing the top Hattie effect sizes. My name is Madame Sensei. I teach Spanish, French, and Japanese to high schoolers out here in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. And if you want to bounce ideas off of me, studio-nemo.com, or the Minecraft Education Ambassadors, or the Minecraft Teachers Lounge, or the Duolingo Educators Network. And as I explained last time, I love to collaborate with people. Makes my games better. All right, so the Hattie effect sizes, again, just to remind you, 0.4 is average. We don't care about average stuff. We are overachievers here, so we're only looking at 0.6 and above. We're starting at the top and counting our way back. Next one with a Hattie effect size of 1.28 is the Piagetian programs. Okay, these fit perfectly with our thesis because they're play-based with concrete materials. My high school students can think abstractly. You know what, though? No one that I know has ever talked about this, but I can't help but notice as students are learning to count in the target language, they use their fingers. It's like they suddenly can't think abstractly in math anymore, even though they're taking trig and they're taking calculus and all that. So I think we can capitalize on this by teaching students how to use their fingers as the target culture does. For example, I know in Japan, counting on your fingers is very different than the muscle memory I had from a little girl down in Alabama. So capitalize on it, you know? And there's this one semester Spanish love song, which is very relatable. It's right here. I'll put the link in the description. But he has this great line, no remembro how to say 11. Okay? Because I really think that my current hypothesis, Piaget-based hypothesis, is that when students are learning a new language, they need to have everything really concrete, and they can't get to the abstract until they have a solid foundation. So that scaffolding is really important. So in the communicative approach, which is very game-based, there's an information gap, and two people are negotiating to fill in the missing information. And I use this a lot in project-based learning, in action-oriented learning, quite a few games where students are running around the room trying to find information to bring back to their table group. Additionally, this works fabulously in escape rooms. I'm going to talk specifically about expert groups, which is what Guided Language Acquisition Development, GLAD, calls the jigsaw method, which we're going to look at in detail, a few techniques of that because it's coming up on the Hattie effect sizes, but not yet. But anyway, the jigsaw method specifically 1.20. Conceptual change programs, 0.99. So as part of your scaffolding, you need to identify where the students are going to trip up in the game. Let me give you an example. For my French 1 students, they often trip up over the word has in French, which is just written with this letter A right here, il a, okay? They see this letter and they say A, okay? This is a huge problem in French because this is a different word, il est. It's pronounced A because French has a ton of silent letters like ballet, buffet, debris, right? So here we have a silent S and a silent T, and this is pronounced A. And if the students get these two things mixed up, it's going to make them really embarrassed because there's a big difference between the idiom of he has cold, il a froid, and il est froid, he is cold-hearted and unemotional. Totally different, okay? So I need to work on these two things as a minimal pair and make sure the students have them down pat, and then we can play the game. Then within the context of the game, the students get like 50 repetitions. This is Guess Who, okay? The students get 50 repetitions, both listening and pronouncing il a versus il est, okay? And if they want to win Guess Who, they're going to need to understand the difference. They're going to need to hear the difference. They're going to need to say the difference. And they're going to need to be able to do all three of those things with a high consistency rate. Those 50 repetitions in a 15-minute game go a million miles to getting the students there. So students also have misconceptions that you need to clear up, and it's good to predict what those misconceptions are going to be, okay? They have misconceptions about the parts of speech. Students will always ask, don't I have to conjugate the adjective? They'll ask, don't I have to make the adverb match the noun? No, because verbs don't have gender. So how do I make the verb feminine? No, verbs don't have gender. So you got to clear up those misconceptions, and if you're prepared for it, it's much easier to do. Students also have misconceptions about whether or not an item can change gender in a Romance language. Oh, the pen belongs to a girl, so can't I say un stilo or uno bolígrafo? No, it's just a pen. It doesn't change gender. Students have misconceptions about politeness. Everyone should be equal. We're in America. Why do I need to use más form to be polite? Well, because you just swore at me. That's why. Students have misconceptions about all the usual overcorrection that we're normally on the lookout for. Okay, so again, you've got to predict, and you're going to teach something. Okay, like here I teach je, me, te, le, que, ne, la. Those are going to lose the E or the A when they smack into a word that starts with a vowel. And then I expect students are going to start taking off the E or the last vowel all the time. And that's just overcorrection. It's a normal part of linguistics. It happens. So if we're prepared for it, it's much easier to deal with. Students have misconceptions about the culture. Okay, like la litote for French. They need to be understated about everything. For Japanese, they need to know not to brag about themselves or their family. That's really rude, okay? So these kinds of things, it's just a result of simply not knowing that the target culture does things differently. So the next step is you need to show the students that the prior beliefs are insufficient or just mistaken. And there's no shame in that. I can't overemphasize how crucial that is, because it's part of the learning process, and you don't want your students to raise their affective filter. Okay, your students don't want to be wrong, and they don't want to be embarrassed. So game-based learning really, really helps us with that, because somehow within the context of a game, it's more fun to be corrected. They're going to be they don't have their affective filter raised as high. So it's much easier to make those corrections in the context of a game, because the students have a goal. Hey, you want to win the game, right? All right, let's work on this. Then the students have to engage with the new information. Okay, if you're playing a game, that's going to go a long way to lowering the affective filter. There's this sense of camaraderie, even when they're competing with each other. There's also repetition that they need to internalize the new information. So here I got two students working together on this. They're correcting each other, and it's no big deal. Nobody feels on the spot for being corrected. In our next episode, we're going to look at more Hattie effect sizes. It's going to take us several episodes to get through all the top Hattie effect sizes and how we can leverage them in a game-based learning classroom. Hope to see you there.